will end up moving through Manatee County, some of Sarasota County, and the storm surge south is going to be problematic from the point of landfall. And then all of this is going to end up moving up towards Tampa Bay. So think about this for a second. Along with the wind, we still have a good 4 to 5 hours of extremely heavy rain around Tampa Bay. And last time I looked, it was an hour ago. We're gonna easily end up with a foot and a half of rain on top of ground that has dealt with a wet summer. So there's going to be some flooding. There's no doubt about that. And these wind speeds here are probably running about 100 to 120, and some of that is going to start bumping onshore. Now, as the hurricane moves across the state, it's going to weaken quite a bit, but there could be some tree damage along the way, maybe an additional tornado or two, and we're going to watch that track all the way across. Is this incorporating the 5 o'clock data?
I was pulling it up to see if it did. Difficult to tell. I believe it does. It does, yes.
So this is the hurricane force winds, which is like the donut, the red part. Okay, that's the hurricane force winds. Is there any way to zoom in? Can you manually zoom in on that?
Yes.
Just to kind of show, get in real tight on it if you can. There you go. Thank you. So that red area is where we're expecting winds to exceed 75 miles an hour. And it's all of Tampa Bay. It's South Tampa. It's some of Pinellas. I mean, it may not be, I'll be honest, it may not be 100% on, but this is a general feel. And then, so those of you that said, what can I expect in my town? This is a good illustration of what you can expect in your town. You should know where you are on the map. And this is the hurricane force winds moving across the state towards Orlando, towards Melbourne, out by the Cape, maybe up to Daytona. Now, it gets smaller because the hurricane is weakening and the amount or where the hurricane force winds begins to shrink because it's been over land for a long time. Let's go back. I think this is a good graphic. Again, so pick out your location, and a lot of you are going to have winds over 60. And then the yellow, just so you know what you're looking at, because I think sometimes the map's confusing. Yellow is tropical storm force winds. Orange is winds 60 plus, and red is hurricane force winds. So you get a sense of how this is going to play out tonight on that path. So what does it show? If you're watching me, Southern Highlands County, down by, say, Hardy, DeSoto, and even southern Sarasota County, you're not going to probably have hurricane force winds. That's important, and that's good because you're going to be in your safe spot, and you feel better about the fact that your home will probably be okay with minimal or no damage. So the zone of red here is where that whole eye wall or the core of the hurricane is going to slide across the state, mainly from like west-southwest to east-northeast. Now, let's leave it there, Nash. What's important about this, think about the population here. It's a lot of people. It's a lot of people that's going to have a rough night. So this is going to be Wednesday at 10:30. So right now it's 5:05. So next 5-6 hours, think of the number of people that live here. Our friends in Manatee, Sarasota, Sun City Center, getting up to Brandon, Tampa, then maybe half of Pinellas. And this doesn't mean necessarily that we'll have sustained winds of 75 plus. There may be lulls. We get down to 50 or 60, then it gusts back up, 80, 90, then it goes back down to 40, 50, 60. That's the rough weather. This will end up being, you know, when I say all the hurricane has to offer as far as energy and weather, this will be it right here, and then it will slide east-northeast towards the East Coast, and that little red circle will get smaller and smaller because it's been over land. Let's check out the winds now. What do we have? 58 St. Pete, 52 Clearwater, 40 in Tampa. As far as the storm surge goes, if the track is like we think it will be, Tampa Bay is going to be kind of interesting because there's going to be water that's going to be pushed up the bay because of the storm pushing the water as it moves that way. But at the same time, the track's a little bit south, the winds are wanting to push the water back out. So it's going to be interesting to see how high the numbers get. Now, more importantly, south of the line, and I'm talking Siesta Key, Now, I'm talking down by Bradenton Beach. That whole area will get the highest storm surge, and then the numbers will start dropping as you head to the south and southeast. So this is still, I think, in question. I'm not really concerned up here because the hurricane's going this way and the winds are blowing this way, so this shouldn't be a big problem. But Tampa Bay is going to be kind of interesting. So I think we'll spend the night, Nash, I think you probably agree with me, is kind of watching the water levels to see how you have competing factors. You have winds when they want to blow out, and you have water that wants to come in. And then once the hurricane gets by us and, say, heads up towards Mulberry, Fort Meade, the winds will start going west, will start going north-northwest, and the water goes out of the bay. So once the hurricane goes east of us, then all the water starts being moved away because the winds on the backside start going north, northwest, maybe some lingering high water south. So the whole storm surge issue is a bit more clear-cut south, but it's kind of a battle around Tampa Bay, and then north, it's clearly an offshore wind. So I hope all that made sense. I think for now, we'll show you a couple things. We're going to continue to show radar trends and wind speeds. I mean, that's really about, and water heights along the coast, and, there's more, and the amount of rain that's accumulating, because the rain accumulations will end up being a big part of Milton's story, too, on top of the tornadoes we had earlier. So we're on it, and Nash, if you want to take over and do some, you're welcome to. It's up to you.
Yeah.
I'll throw it back to the set.
Well, let's check out current wind gusts right now, Paul. You mentioned those gusts climbing up now to 58, 60 miles per hour out there near St. Pete. We're going to continue to watch those increase, and all those offshore winds will turn onshore for areas farther south as this pushes onshore. We are still deciding exactly where that potential landfall point will be. Important to note, though, that power outage map that we're already starting to see climb to the thousands in several counties is likely going to continue to climb as well, as the power outages will only go upward from here. The center of that circulation housing the strongest of winds. And because, Paul, we've been talking about how saturated the ground is with all the rainfall we've seen, not even just from this event, but leading up to this event with Debbie and Helene. That's going to make that ground extra soggy, saturated, and unfortunately that could lead to downed trees, power outages, utility poles that could tumble over and lead to even more outages as this sweeps across the state. Helene stayed off the shoreline. This one's coming onshore. So areas inland and east of I-75 can unfortunately expect to see impacts where maybe they missed out on them entirely with this last event. And then all of this pushes off to the east coast. Those winds will be out of the north heading into the early hours of Thursday morning, 5 a.m. here, with more of those outages pushing off to the opposite side of the state. Paul, we've been looking at the center of this circulation, and we noted about an hour ago that this was riding north of that forecast line, that forecast landfall point that the National Hurricane Center puts out. As of their latest correction, I think it's on the money with the thinking that this is, at the moment, on point, on line to head right on the northwesternmost tip there of Manatee County. We're going to continue watching this and seeing if this wiggles, wobbles, takes any weird directions here, but the eye is getting larger. Drier air is funneling into the south side of it, and that's one of a number of factors we're going to be monitoring with this system. But for now, we're going to keep an eye on it here in the Weather Center and send it back to you two at the desk.
All right, thank you, Nash.
Yeah, a lot of crucial information to digest with that. Hopefully people who saw themselves in those severe areas take it to heart, especially the next couple hours.
Yeah, I think seeing Paul showing the hurricane force winds over the biggest center of our population, Tampa, St. Pete, Sarasota, we know that power outages are going to be a major problem following the storm here.
Yeah, and you need to be in a safe place, and hopefully you're there right now.
Yeah. Also, Sarasota County, as Paul pointed out, if those hurricane force winds are coming in around Sarasota, you know, obviously that's not good. And then the storm surge is going to be a big story just to the south of that. Fox 13's Kimberly Quizon is live in the Gulf Gate community there in Sarasota County. Kimberly, but you have been all over Sarasota and Manatee counties. Maybe you just heard Paul a few minutes ago say possible point of landfall is Holmes Beach or Sarasota. Obviously, that's an area that you know better than any of us, and you know what they've been through 2 weeks ago with Helene.
Chris, I do. I was trying not to tear up there on you. Obviously, I grew up on Holmes Beach, and in Sarasota here, this is where my family's at. Sorry, I do not mean to cry during this. But just as you said that, it kind of hits reality. So many of my friends, so many of our family members have had impacts from Helene and now possibly Milton. Just so I don't get too emotional, I want to show you right now just some of the wind gusts that we're seeing out here in Sarasota. I covered Hurricane Ian. We stayed here for Ian. These gusts are definitely picking up a lot more. Hurricane Ian was overnight, but these gusts have been steady all day long. We're taking cover right now at my house in Sarasota under the pool cage, so we feel kind of safe there. But up and down the coast in Manatee and Sarasota counties, so many continue to recover from Helene. All those efforts went on hold. What you're seeing right here is the Bayshore Gardens community and damage from Helene. Now, this area was badly damaged as well. I want to show you some video from a resident, Robert Prine. He's a lifelong Floridian, lived in Bayshore Gardens for decades, and this was the storm surge from Helene. It was so bad that it almost came up to the roofs of some of his neighbors' houses. Today, he did evacuate as we went out to his home, just hearing that the potential landfall could be on Holmes Beach, Anna Maria Island. This is right across the way from there. But he said, you know, as much as we have gone through already in this area, that as Floridians and as people who love this area that we call this place home, that he will build back and help others to do the same.
I think you just get up every day and know that this is just part of living on the water. It's part of living in Florida, and it's got to help each other out. We got to get through this, and we got to rebuild the state of Florida. And thank God we've got Governor Ron DeSantis leading the way.
I want to talk to you, too. You said the night that Helene came in, you were here. We saw the downstairs, which is severely damaged. Go ahead and just talk about just what that was like.
I think it was the first time that I really got ready for a hurricane. I put 2 foot of plywood up on the walls, and when it breached the plywood, I kind of came upstairs and just resigned myself to what had happened. And the most haunting sound you'll ever hear in your life is your furniture beating off your walls. It's a terrible, terrible sound, and you can't do anything about it. So we're all going to get through this. We're going to rebuild, and we'll get back.
Yeah, and what you're seeing right here is some video from Sarasota Bay. It's kind of the calm before everything happened this morning. This was around 11 a.m. You can see furniture still out in the bay there from Helene, and residents concerned about just how much surge they will see today and the impacts that could likely alter the area forever. And again, it's really surreal to hear. For decades living in this area, having family as well, we've always felt so lucky knowing that the storms never came this close. Now they're coming so close to so many people. And it's just a hard thing to know what to do. Obviously, we need to stay safe. We need to stay with our family members, make sure everyone's okay. Omar and I just saw a couple people here in the Gulfgate neighborhood going to their cars, starting to leave once again. Still a little bit of time to do it, but really you got to get into a safe place within the next hour or two. Chris, back to you.
Yeah, good advice there. And just on a personal note, just hang in there, Kim. I mean, it's because of your reporting and your big heart that all of our viewers know exactly what kind of people live there on those barrier islands that took such a terrible blow from Helene. And because of your reporting, too, a lot of people made the safe decision to get out of harm's way this time. So keep up the great work and stay safe.
She is a professional. She is a reporter, but she's a human. And everyone out there is. This is a weather story right now, and that's what we're worried about is what's to come. But really, the big picture is this affects so many people, and maybe you need to cry. You know, we're all feeling those nerves, and we'll do our best to let everybody know what's coming and where
this is our home, and that's why we want to make sure everyone gets through it safe. Let's move it now to parts of Tampa now, where we're already seeing some flooded roads underwater. Of course, that includes Bayshore Boulevard.
Fox 13's Ariel Placencia joins us live there. Ariel, it doesn't take much for Bayshore to flood. What are you seeing out there?
You're exactly right. It doesn't at all. And the wind and the rain really coming down here in Tampa. So naturally, Bayshore Boulevard is already wet. The sidewalk certainly has a lot more water on it than it did when I saw you guys last about an hour ago. Again, we're here on Bayshore Boulevard in Tampa. Now, I will say that the roads have remained open. When I was here for Hurricane Helene, we watched all that water just violently splash over the balustrades here. That's not what we have at play right now. Right now, we've got a lot of wind, a lot of rain, and you can see the roads already wet. Now, thankfully, in about the last hour, we have seen traffic overall gone down. There are fewer cars out here, fewer people out and about kind of taking a look around, but we have seen Bayshore already being taken over by water. And you can see this video, and I shot this a little while ago. You can already tell that those northbound lanes is sort of beginning near that intersection with Oregon Avenue, already completely underwater. You can barely kind of see those lane lines there. There were a few cars at that time driving around, and you can see when you look at them, all that water that's kicking up. And again, it doesn't take much for Bayshore to flood, and so we were already seeing this about an hour ago, and we, of course, know that more water is on the way. Now, back here on Bayshore Boulevard, this is an area that we will certainly keep an eye on. Again, the streets taking on a significant amount of water. We have seen emergency vehicles pass by, but again, traffic lower on the low side, which is good because people really should be staying home at this point. I will also mention, again, Bayshore Boulevard, this is part of Zone A, which is under a mandatory evacuation here in Hillsborough County. So is Zone B. And also, because of the flooding that we saw with Hurricane Helene, and also some of those fires with electric vehicles, the city has allowed people to park their cars in some of the city garages. And when we were driving by earlier today, we saw people taking advantage of that. So certainly hoping that people will stay off the roads and that they move their cars to higher and safer ground earlier if they needed to do so. I'll send it back to you guys.
Ariel Placencia reporting tonight on Bayshore Boulevard. Ariel, thank you.
So we, when we stand, but Nash and I work over there, we have the open chat. So we have kind of a discussion with our friends at the Weather Service. So we kind of know what they're thinking, and we can type, and they kind of answer us, go back and forth. Yeah. It's kind of a team thing. So on the chat now is that they're probably going to issue what's called an extreme wind warning, which is rarely done. I mean, it's not like it was done up in the Big Bend when Helene made landfall. And since I've been here, I don't remember the last time one's been issued. It's really issued because the Weather Service says we need a way to let people know the wind you're about to experience is going to be really bad. Okay. And the criteria is, just so you know, the wind needs to be sustained surface winds need to be greater than 100 knots, which is about 115 miles an hour.
Really?
So what they're doing is they're watching that core off the coast, and as it starts moving towards northern Manatee, where Kim is, and up towards Anna Maria, and probably maybe a little bit of southern Pinellas, that's where, and it's not going to be long lasting, it's going to be very small. It's not going to be like a whole county. It's something like Hillsborough. It's going to be really where it's going to happen. Okay. So get set for that. And also, if Nash is over here, so would that be one with the phones that go off for that, right?
Yes, this is.
That's
I believe this will be
in the list of alerts that you get on your phone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Similar to storm surge warnings, similar to the other alerts that set off your phones, that would likely go off if this was issued. And Paul, to your point earlier, last few times this has been issued, the storms have been Helene, most recently, Idalia. It was issued